A tradition preserved in Josephus records the narrative of a priest named Osaseph, who leads a group during a time of chaos in Egypt, just before the Hyksos become powerful. Manetho says Osaseph gives new rules to his followers: do not worship Egyptian gods, nor follow Egypt's animal-based food customs. Manetho describes two Canaanite groups in conflict with Egypt in this account. He says Egypt dealt with them in two separate episodes, under two different kings, the Lepers and the Hyksos. The first group, the Lepers under Osaseph, are the initial opposition, but are driven out by a pharaoh. Manetho calls Tethmosis. They go toward a land Manetho calls Jerusalem, and are remembered as burning cities there. The second group, the Hyksos, under Salatis, seize power in Egypt, build defenses, and prepare for war with a pharaoh Manetho calls Amenophis, who later expels them. Now compare that story with the archaeology at Avaris, Tel El Daba. Excavations suggest that the city's core occupation changes in two major stages during the Middle Bronze Age. During their own time, the earlier Levantine population was known in Egyptian terms as the Sati, the common term for Asiatics in the Delta, while the later ruling group became known as the Hyksos. Archaeologically, the shift is also spatial. Activity is concentrated first in Area F1, then the center of growth and institutional power moves to Area A, which expands rapidly under the Hyksos. This later phase reflects not just a local urban change, but the rise of a ruling group that came to control Egypt, hence the name Hyksos, from the title meaning rulers of foreign lands. In the final stage of this sequence, the Hyksos stronghold is overthrown and violently cleared. This study relates the first episode to Area F1, when occupation declines and parts of the district are abandoned, which signal the end of the Sati phase. A major palace complex linked to Kion appears briefly in Area F2, setting the beginning of the new Hyksos phase, but the palace does not last. Soon, the center of activity shifts entirely toward Area A, which expands quickly. The movement from Area F1 to Area A is usually read as the city's elite center relocation. This indeed could be a normal urban change, but it can also fit Manetho's basic sequence: a break in an older neighborhood from a group departing, the Lepers, followed by consolidation of power in a different district by another group, the Hyksos. In the second episode, the Hyksos, after inhabiting Area A for generations, are finally expelled from their stronghold area in the phase linked with final stratum, which aligns with Manetho's second expulsion story by Amenophis, here associated with Amos, whose complete name is Amos Nebfatir.
This study focuses on Area F1 during the final stages of the Sati phase, when it loses built space and stops behaving like a normal living neighborhood. The claim is cautious as it is not proof of traditions such as the Lepers' departure. It simply identifies a moment of rupture, and that rupture is compatible with both a large relocation or, as this study defends, a voluntary departure of a long-settled Semitic population, the Lepers, and the arrival of another, the Hyksos, while the city itself does not show slow economic decline or violent expulsion as possible causes. The argument for a population shift rather than simple relocation is that from Area F1 to Area A, there appears to be an increasing divergence in cultural practices. For example, local rulers uses full pharaonic titles and royal ideology, introduction of elite horse burial practices, signs of chariot culture, houses that combine Levantine layout with Egyptian organization. Early Levantine ritual animal burials decline in later phases. Intramural burials decline, and burials inside the settlement become less common.
What changes on the ground is easy to picture using Manetho's dynastic labels. Much of that older neighborhood fabric, which represented the 14th dynasty, is leveled. That is a clear break in cultural and geographical continuity. A heavily fortified 15th dynasty Hyksos administrative complex, called Kion's Palace, appears, but it feels different from the older community pattern, and it too is later abandoned.
One key sign of the shift is the famous Pit L81, a massive refuse trench. It suggests the Area F1 is no longer a thriving neighborhood. It becomes more like a backyard or dump zone tied to Hyksos court activity. Meanwhile, Area A shows the opposite pattern, a strong increase in building density, which signals growing institutional power in that district.
Manetho's story contains a striking line. Under a king named Ptolemaeus, a blast of God strikes, and invaders from the east take the land, the Hyksos, without striking a blow. Read literally, this sounds like weather. Read historically, it sounds like a memory of sudden collapse. Leadership fails, systems fracture, and a new power enters with little resistance. If Moses is understood as an Osasef-type figure, his speeches echo the same rupture tone found in Manetho's account. Moses frames both the departure. This day you came out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery, in Exodus 13 verse 3, and 40 years later, the persistence of the crisis. Egypt has not recovered to this day, as described in Deuteronomy 11 verse 4. Even if Manetho compresses several events into one dramatic story, the shape repeats: internal breakdown, then leper departure, and finally Hyksos takeover, being remembered as abrupt. Avaris matters because archaeology can show one concrete piece of that pattern. One district goes quiet while another expands.
A key point comes from the excavations at Tel Edfu, where fighting suggests the Hyksos Kayan of the 15th dynasty overlaps with Sobekatep IV of the 13th dynasty. This does not prove a departure at Avaris, but it does weaken the idea that there must be a clean gap between Egyptian decline and Hyksos rise. The overlap makes it easier to imagine a period where internal stress and outside power grow at the same time. A period when an Egyptian 13th dynasty, a pre-Israelite leper 14th dynasty, and a pure Canaanite 15th dynasty could interact. From a Levantine-based Delta society, the disappearance of their 14th dynasty elite and the emptying of the urban core would read like a place being dismantled. This can be the moment when a foreign enemy exploits a weakened, emptied older Semitic core, echoing Pharaoh's fear in Exodus 1, verse 10. If he was a 13th dynasty ruler, that Semitic servants loyal to their 14th dynasty overseers might join the enemies of Egypt, here read as the Hyksos of the 15th dynasty. This offers a plausible scenario grounded in the archaeological record and memory tradition rather than ad hoc explanations. In that sense, the Hyksos rise in Area A does not begin the crisis of old Avaris, it capitalizes on it.
The careful conclusion is simple. No single text or layer proves the exodus. But the rupture in Area Fi of the Sati to the Area A of the Hyksos is a strong candidate for the kind of disruption later traditions remember as break, then the departure of a group, and the takeover by another. In that frame, Manetho's Osasurf to tradition and the blast of God reads as cultural memory, the disappearance of the 14th dynasty as an archaeological trace of disruption, and the Exodus account as a later commentary of its perceived causes or an appropriation of the tradition from an earlier group by the later group known as the Israelites. The main question is what kind of rupture the end of the Sati phase represents, and the material markers above show how to argue it in plain archaeological terms.